She called me a clueless boomer, said I didn't understand how modern finances worked, especially for my grandson, Liam. For months, I watched her help him with his college fund. But my generation learned one thing very well: how to read a balance sheet. And the numbers weren't adding up. She thought my tablet was just for playing solitaire. She was wrong. It was about to become the only thing protecting Liam's entire future. They say ignorance is bliss, but in my experience, ignorance is just a liability waiting to happen. For the past 6 months, I had been watching my daughter-in-law, Tiffany, manage Liam's college savings account. My late husband, Tom, and I had set it up years ago, contributing diligently until it reached a healthy 6 figures, enough to give our grandson a head start without the burden of crippling debt. When Tom passed, I continued the tradition, but recently a gnawing unease had settled in my stomach. It started with small things: a new designer handbag Tiffany was sporting, a lavish weekend trip she and my son Mark took to Napa, which they brushed off as a great deal they found online. Things that on their own meant little, but together they started to paint a picture I didn't want to see. The opportunity to speak with Mark came during my other grandson's 10th birthday party. Between the bouncy castle and the barbecue grill, I cornered him near the patio. I'd printed out the last 6 months of statements. "Mark, we need to talk about Liam's account," I started, holding out the papers. He barely glanced at them. "Mom, not now. We're celebrating." "It'll only take a minute," I pressed. "There are withdrawals I don't understand. Nearly $5,000 last month alone." Just then, Tiffany appeared, a tray of expertly frosted cupcakes in hand. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice pure sugar. "Carol was just worried about some bank fees," Mark said, far too quickly. Tiffany placed a hand on my arm, her touch light but condescending. "Oh, Carol, you worry too much. These new investment accounts are complex. There are automatic rebalances, service charges. It's not like your old passbook savings." She smiled at Mark. "Don't worry, honey. I'm handling it. Liam's future is perfectly safe." She saw me as a relic, an out-of-touch old woman who couldn't possibly grasp the world of modern finance. It was a familiar, painful feeling, the slow creeping invisibility that comes with age. My decades of meticulous budgeting, of managing our family's finances through lean years, of building this very nest egg, it all counted for nothing against her youthful confidence and dismissive jargon. Later that evening, I went to say goodnight to Liam. I found him in his room, not doing homework or playing video games, but staring at his own tablet, his face pale with worry. He saw me at the door and quickly tried to hide the screen. "Hey, Grandma," he mumbled. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, sitting on the edge of his bed. He hesitated, then his resolve crumbled. He handed me the tablet. I think Mom's been taking my money," he whispered. On the screen was a detailed transaction history he had managed to access. It wasn't automatic rebalances or service fees. It was Venmo, Cash App, dozens of small, untraceable transfers from his college fund directly to Tiffany's personal accounts, each one labeled with innocuous things like groceries, school supplies, gas. And then came the final transgression. A single large transfer from just last week, a $5,000 payment to a high-end designer boutique. Tiffany hadn't gotten a great deal on that handbag. My grandson had paid for it. "She told me not to worry," Liam said, his voice trembling. "She said it was just moving money around to get a better interest rate and that I didn't understand. I looked from the screen with its cold, hard numbers to my grandson's trusting, frightened face. Tiffany hadn't just stolen his money. She had stolen his confidence, making him doubt his own perceptions. She called me a clueless boomer. She made him believe he was a confused kid. At that moment, I looked at the zero balance on the screen. 40 years of careful saving gone in an afternoon. They called it moving money around. At that moment, I had to ask myself a very serious question. When does a child's sense of entitlement become simple, outright theft? Let me know what you think in the comments. As for me, I decided it was time to teach them the legal definition.
After Liam was asleep, I did not cry. I did not storm into Mark's office to confront him. Rage is a hot, messy emotion. The emotion I felt was cold, clear, and precise. It was the feeling I used to get as an accountant just before I uncovered a significant case of fraud. The quiet certainty that comes when the numbers tell a story the people involved are desperately trying to hide. I went to my own home office, unlocked the small fireproof safe in my closet, and pulled out my earned power. It wasn't a secret inheritance or a lottery ticket. It was Tom's old business ledger. He had run a small but successful hardware supply store for 30 years, and I had managed the books. Every penny in, every penny out, recorded in his neat, disciplined hand. We sold the business when he retired, but I kept the books, not for sentimental reasons, but because I knew they held a truth more valuable than the business itself. They held the key to a family trust Tom had established, one that Tiffany and Mark didn't know existed. It wasn't for Liam. It was for me. A rainy day fund, Tom had called it, in case my son marries a woman who loves spending more than she loves saving. It was a joke at the time. It wasn't a joke anymore. The trust was structured with a specific clause, one Tom insisted on, which I'd thought overly cynical at the time. He called it the responsibility clause. It stipulated that if the primary inheritance, the college fund for Liam, was ever mismanaged or used for purposes other than the child's education and well-being, control of my own trust would immediately be activated, giving me full discretionary power over its assets. And Tom, the ever-prudent businessman, had defined mismanagement with painstaking detail. Unauthorized withdrawals exceeding $1,000 per month, expenditures on luxury goods, any action that devalued the principal by more than 5% in a single calendar year. Tiffany hadn't just tripped one of these wires. She had, with her $5,000 handbag, run headlong through all of them. For 2 hours, I sat at my desk, a modern-day general preparing for a war I never wanted to fight. I logged into my online banking portal, and there it was, the Whitaker Family Rainy Day Trust, dormant for years. Account balance, $287,451. I then cross-referenced Liam's college fund statements on my tablet with Tiffany's social media. The dates were almost comical in their precision. The $300 transfer labeled groceries coincided with the day she posted a photo from a Michelin-starred restaurant. The $500 for school supplies matched the receipt from a luxury spa weekend she posted on Instagram. It wasn't just theft. It was blatant, arrogant hypocrisy. My first move was not a confrontation. It was a simple, quiet phone call to my financial advisor, the same one who managed the family trusts. The conversation was brief. "I need to invoke the responsibility clause," I stated, my voice even, "and I'd like to transfer the full balance of the rainy day trust into a new private account under my name only." There was a pause on the other end, then a quiet, "Understood, Carol. I'll get the paperwork started." My second move was even simpler. Mark and Tiffany shared a joint credit card, a premium travel rewards card I had co-signed for years ago to help them build their credit history. As the primary account holder, I had the right to set the credit limit. I logged into the bank's portal and found the page. Current limit, $50,000. I typed in a new number, 500. A single click, no drama, no announcement, just a quiet digital correction. The first sign that the ground was shifting beneath Tiffany's feet came 3 days later via a conduit of information she never would have suspected. My friend Susan, who worked part-time at that very designer boutique. Susan called me, her voice a mix of amusement and indignation. "Carol, you won't believe what has happened," she said. "Tiffany was in here, tried to buy that new handbag she's been eyeing for weeks. Card was declined. Twice. She was absolutely mortified." The next domino fell a week later. I received a text from Mark. "Mom, did you change something with the bank? Tiffany's card isn't working and they're saying the credit limit was changed." I let the message sit, unanswered, for a full day. My silence was a more powerful statement than any argument I could have made. They had made me feel invisible. Now I was using that invisibility as a strategy. Let them wonder. Let them feel the unease of not knowing, the same unease I had felt for months. The follow-up came in the form of an angry voicemail from Mark that I happened to overhear because Liam was playing it out loud in his room. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but Liam had the volume turned up. "Mom, call me back. This is serious. It's not just Tiffany's card. The automatic payment for the mortgage was just rejected. Bounced. The bank is saying insufficient funds in the trust account. What is going on? Did you withdraw money? You need to fix this, Mom. You need to call the bank and fix this now." The entitlement in his voice was staggering. He wasn't asking for help. He was demanding a solution. He assumed, even now, that my role was to manage his life and smooth over his problems. He hadn't once considered that these financial mishaps were a direct consequence of their own actions. He didn't connect his wife's profligate spending with an empty account. He didn't connect their disrespect with my withdrawal of support. He saw a problem, and he expected me, the family fixer, to make it go away. He showed up that evening, not with an apology, but with a demand. He stormed into my kitchen, waving the mortgage rejection letter. "The bank said the trust is empty, Mom. Empty. Where is the money?" His voice was a blend of panic and accusation. I took a slow sip of my chamomile tea before answering. "The money is exactly where it's supposed to be, Mark. In a new account, under my name." He stared at me, dumbfounded. "Your name? But why? That money was for Liam, for the house." "No," I corrected him gently. "Half of that money was a rainy day fund your father left for me. The other half was indeed for Liam's future. A future your wife was systematically turning into a collection of designer shoes and spa days." The color drained from his face. "Tiffany? What does she have to do with this?" I almost felt a pang of pity for him. he was so thoroughly blinded by her manipulations, or perhaps his own willful ignorance. I pushed my tablet across the table, the screen still showing the neat columns of her Venmo transactions. "Ask her," I said simply. "Ask her about the groceries from Gucci and the school supplies from the Four Seasons." He sank into a chair, the fight draining from him as he scrolled through the evidence. He looked up, his eyes filled with a helpless confusion I hadn't seen since he was a small boy who'd broken a family heirloom. I didn't know," he stammered. "She let this happen?" "No, Mark," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You let this happen. You looked the other way. You dismissed my concerns. You chose comfort over accountability. This is not her failure. It is yours." The consequences cascaded faster than I think even they expected. Without the trust fund propping up their lifestyle, their financial house of cards began to collapse. The first notice was from Liam's private school, a polite but firm letter regarding a past due tuition payment. Liam, bless his heart, showed it to me himself, his shame palpable. I assured him it would be taken care of, and I paid the school directly from the new account, noting the transaction meticulously in my own ledger. Educational expense, repayment pending. Then came the car loan, a warning letter about a missed payment on Tiffany's luxury SUV. I learned about it when a tow truck appeared on their street, a fact my neighbor was all too happy to report to me over the phone. "They're hooking up Tiffany's Range Rover, Carol. What on earth is going on over there?" It seems that without my financial backing, Mark and Tiffany were incapable of managing even the most basic elements of their life. Their sure thing business venture, a vague consulting firm Mark had started, apparently had no actual clients. Their budget, it turned out, consisted of spending whatever was in their checking account and assuming more would magically appear. I didn't gloat. I simply observed. This was not a punishment I was inflicting. It was the natural, logical outcome of their choices. They had lived for years in a reality I had built for them, and they had mistaken that construction for their own achievement. Now they were simply experiencing the real world. They finally came to me a month later, not with demands, but with a white flag. They sat on the guest chairs in my home office, the same chairs they'd never once occupied before, and laid out their ruin. The mortgage was in default. The car had been repossessed. The private school had sent a final warning. "We don't know what to do," Mark admitted, the arrogance finally stripped from his voice. "We'll lose the house." Tiffany, for her part, was silent, staring at her hands. This was it, the checkmate. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list their transgressions. I simply opened the old ledger on my desk. "Your father was a very methodical man," I said softly, turning the book so they could see the columns. "He believed in planning. He also believed in accountability." I pointed to a page. "This is the trust he established for me. And this," I tapped a neatly written paragraph, "is the responsibility clause he wrote into it. It states that in the event of gross financial mismanagement of the family's primary educational trust, full discretionary control of this fund reverts to me." I then slid a second folder across the desk. "And this is the documentation of that mismanagement. itemized, with dates. They were speechless. The boardroom they thought was theirs was mine. Winning back control of the fund was one thing, but making my incompetent son accountable for the damage he'd allowed was another matter entirely. The family's survival depended on it. If you want to see the fallout and the tough decisions that came next, make sure you subscribe, because this story isn't over yet.
My victory was not in their ruin, but in their education. I did not evict them. I did not cut them off. I established a new, fair order. I sat down with them and my financial advisor the following week. "We are going to sell the house," I announced, not as a suggestion, but as a statement of fact. It's an asset you cannot afford, and a lifestyle you have not earned. Tiffany started to protest, but a sharp look from Mark silenced her. He was, it seemed, finally beginning to understand. "From the proceeds," I continued, "we will first repay in full every dollar that was taken from Liam's college fund. Second, we will pay off all your outstanding credit card debt. What remains will be divided into 3 equal shares." I looked at them both. "Your share can serve as a down payment on a home that you can actually afford. Tiffany's share can be her seed money for a real career or her own rainy day fund. And my share," I paused, "will be mine. To invest, to travel, to use as I see fit." For the first time, Mark spoke. And the trust fund your father left for you?" "That," I said, "is none of your concern. That is my security, the one your father knew I would need, and the one you will never touch again." The sale of the house closed 6 weeks later. Mark and Tiffany found a smaller townhouse, one they could afford on his salary alone. Tiffany, faced with the reality of having to contribute, enrolled in a paralegal certification program. I don't know if their marriage will last, but that is their story to write, not mine. And Liam, he's thriving. Knowing his college fund is secure has lifted a great weight from his shoulders. He has started calling me twice a week, not to ask for anything, but just to talk. As for me, I did not retire into a quiet life of gardening and daytime television. With my share of the house proceeds and the untouchable fund Tom left me, I started a new venture. It's a small business incubator, a co-working space I call the Third Act. It's a place for women over 50 to launch the businesses they never had the time or capital to start. We have a former teacher who now runs a thriving online tutoring service, a retired nurse who developed a line of organic skincare, a homemaker who is now a sought-after event planner. I don't just fund them, I mentor them. I teach them how to read a balance sheet, how to negotiate a contract, how to see their own value. The most important thing I've learned is this: your value isn't determined by the people who take you for granted. It's determined the moment you decide you had enough. In the comments, I want to hear about a moment when you realized your own worth. Your stories deserve to be told. And be sure to watch this next story. It's for every woman who's ever been underestimated.